thank you, Frank Pucelik, for taking the invitation to be our guest here in Macedonia and on the Balkans. So it's a great honor for me to interview the founder, one of the founders of NLP, and to hear the stories from the first hand, we say. How it was. And I admire your work. And because of you guys, I'm in this NLP story, and it's so wonderful to share that and spread it in the world. So you start something amazing, and it's really wonderful to be a part of it. So thank you for this opportunity to talk with you today. So
thank you very much.
And this is also my colleague Limba. She's also here with us, and we're gonna just ask some questions and have interesting answers from you. So let's start from the beginning. Yes, how it's for you after so many years also to see that the world is living something that you created with colleagues, of course, so many years ago. So how it's for you to see that the millions of people are living something that started in the 70s?
Yeah, it's actually quite amazing to me, knowing exactly how it started, and that there was never any intention of creating something like this in the beginning. It's amazing, and no matter where I go, all over the world, I meet people at every level of business, every level of government, every level of just regular people living their lives, that are talking about and using terms that I created, and it's still sometimes I kind of go, what? Whoa. and just get absolutely surprised. It's a great pleasure for me, obviously, and I can't take credit for what was done. It was John Grinder is the real source of genius, and Richard and I were lucky enough to be two crazy characters in the right place at the right time to meet him and be influenced by him. And then over the next 5 years, from 1971 to 1976, there were actually about 12 to 14 of us. And there was a team of students that spent 4 years plus working anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 hours a week, absolutely voluntarily the whole time, finding people who were really good at things and taking systems that we heard of that were supposed to be good and tearing them apart, basically chunking them down to try and figure out how they actually worked. Because one of the things that we discovered very early on is that if you ask a person who's really good at something how they do it, they can't tell you. They don't know.
Yeah.
And so most of the great therapy systems, most of the great communication systems of the day were completely lost in the jargon of their system. When a person it takes 30 years to become good at something, that they don't really know what they're doing consciously. They learn by trial and error. This works, that works, little by little, piece by piece by piece by piece. And over the period of 20, 30 years, they become masters. Well, if you ask them how they're doing what they do, they don't know. So they make up words, they make up systems. And so they will build the theoretical system like Gestalt or transactional analysis or mathematics or chemistry or whatever. They'll build words that for them describe what they think they're doing. But the difficulty is those words aren't what they're doing. And the difficulty is that those words are actually do not tell you anything about what they're really doing. So we ran into that very, very early on in 71. It's I'm kind of moving on, so I'll let you, if you have another question in there before I.
Oh, that's interesting because I searched so much. There are some similar stories, but there's something also different. So that's great to hear how it started.
Good. So
Yes.
I can tell you exactly how it started, piece by piece, moment by moment, day by day, because there was only 3 people there for that period of time, and that was John, Richard, and myself. I actually started, Richard and I had met at UC Santa Cruz, and we were both teaching Gestalt therapy to students. He had learned Gestalt therapy by watching Fritz Perls videos, and he worked at Science and Behavior Books in the warehouse. He was actually shipping books, but Bob Spitzer, who owned Science and Behavior Books, had purchased Fritz Perls' legacy, had purchased all of the unfinished manuscripts and videos and stuff that had never been published. And they were in a big a box at the warehouse. And so Richard, out of curiosity, started looking at those videos and thought they were kind of funny and fun. And so he would copy those videos and ended up being a very, very good Gestaltist. And I had studied Gestalt at the university that I came from before I transferred to Santa Cruz. Gestalt and a lot of other things, because I was fresh home from the jungle in Southeast Asia, and was pretty much destroyed by my experience in the military, and was trying to find some kind of help to figure out how I could become a human being again. And the things that I was studying weren't doing the job. It wasn't helping. They were interesting, and they helped me figure out some things, but they weren't doing the job. And so I was on about my 4th or 5th style of psychotherapy, trying to find the answer. But I liked Gestalt. Gestalt was fun as a practitioner because it was very active. And you could tell a person, sit in the chair and scream at your mother and pound the chair and break it into pieces and throw it out the window, and you're all good. And so it's very active, and the therapist in Gestalt is a very active part, and you're part of the process. And so that was really fun, but for probably all the wrong reasons, but it was fun because I could shout at people and have them break up chairs and throw them out the window and stuff. So, and Richard was very good at Gestalt too. Kind of, he picked up a lot of unconscious behaviors from Fritz's videos. So we're teaching Gestalt, and this is in 71, and we were doing that just to make some money so that we could pay our rent and so forth. And Richard had kind of accidentally stopped into a lecture of a new professor who had just arrived at Kresge College with quite a reputation from Noam Chomsky and Spencer and some other really incredibly amazing linguists. Yes. And creators at the time of new systems, okay, from New York, from New York University. And he had just finished a postdoc degree and was known as one of the premier linguistics analysts in the world. And this was John Grinder. So Richard had gone to his class just out of curiosity, really liked what he saw, came back to me and said, Frank, this guy is pretty clever. Let's see if we can get him to come and observe our Gestalt groups, and then maybe he can help us figure out how to do Gestalt better. So we go, fine. So I said, invite the guy. And so he invited John, and John told him, hell no, I'm not coming to your stupid psychology program thing, And he goes, psychology is the way that the governments control the masses. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And so Richard came back to me and said, John said no. He didn't just say no. He said emphatically no. And so I said, well, to hell with it. Invite him again, Oh. And so Richard invited him again, and he said no again. And Richard invited him again, and he said no again. And after the 5th time Richard invited him, John said to Richard, okay, listen, if I agree to come to your damn psychology class one time, will you leave me alone? And Richard said, okay, yeah, deal. And so John came to the psychology class, and he was a strange looking character with long hair and, you know, and funny clothes for professors and all that. But he was young and he was ex-soldier. So he and I hit it off very, very, very well, very, very quickly, because we're both combat soldiers. And he's a much more sophisticated soldier than I was. But so he listened, and after it was over, he got up, walked out, and left. Didn't say a word, you know. And so Richard and I are looking at each other, kind of going, "Well, that was fun." What the hell was that, you know? But 2 days later, we did another group, and he showed up, you know, and he sat in the back of the room, didn't say a word the whole time, left afterwards. 3 times he just stood up and walked out afterwards. So we're looking like, what the hell is this guy doing, you know? And so the 4th time, he came the 4th time, and it was after about 2 weeks, and he stayed afterwards. And then when all the students left, for the participants in the Gestalt group, John said, "Come here, guys." And Richard and I went back there and sat down with him in the back of the room. And he started asking us questions about linguistic structure that we had been using in our therapy demonstrations, you know, and we're looking at each other going, whoa. And so he asked, do you know what reversed reference is?
Sorry?
Reversed reference from the meta model. You know what that is, right?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
Well, that's the first meta model violation that we ever knew about. Okay. Yeah. And so he said, are you doing that on purpose? When you hear reversed reference, what you do after 4 or 5 times of hearing it is switch it back to normal reference and then ask for the deletion. And we're going, yes. We do what? Yeah. You know? And he goes, well, that's what you're doing. You know, we're going, okay, got it. You know, what's that again? And so he told us again. And so we go, wow, okay. Yeah, okay, I got it. And he said, but you guys, you're not doing it right away. You're hearing this language structure 4 or 5 times before you react to it. Why are you waiting that long? And we go, well, we didn't know what the hell we're reacting to, you know? And so he goes, well, yeah, why don't you just take it the first time and do it? You know, and we go, well, we will now, because now we know what the hell we're listening to. And so he was there for that, and we had 2 or 3 meta model violations that he taught us the first night. He came back the next session, and we basically met again afterwards. He came back again the 3rd time, and we met again afterwards. But this time we noticed some of the students in the group, and these were mostly graduate students. These were remember, Santa Cruz was the home of the best students in the world. Yes. And in order to get into Santa Cruz at that time, you had to be incredibly smart kid. I got in because I could never have gotten into Santa Cruz, honestly. But I got in because the California government was granting scholarships to combat vets after Vietnam. Oh. And so I went in on one of those special passes to the most incredible university that existed in America at the time. And 1 out of 10,000 applicants were granted admission to UC Santa Cruz in those days. And it was an elite university for only the special kids, and they didn't have normal professors. They didn't have professors. They had experts in fields that were famous, came to not lecture students, but to just be there in their area and let students interact with them casually whenever they could. So they didn't actually do lectures. They just continued their research and hired some of the kids, not for money, but just to kids to help them do their research. And so then the kids were then teaching other people how to do what incredible masters were doing. So we didn't have any college professors, standing up and doing this and that and this and that. No, we had professional people from the real world of research that were living there, being paid by the university to continue their research.
Amazing.
And let the kids talk to you, because these are very smart kids, and I think you'll like them. And assistance if you free, because they're there. And so for these special people, that was a dream come true. And Grinder was one of those. So here's these kids standing in the back listening, to our discussions. And then on the third time or the fourth time, some of the kids came forward after the Gestalt group and said, guys, can we, if we don't talk, can we just sit in and listen to what you're talking about? Because it's amazing, And so John and Richard both, and me, all three of us, we go, yeah, sure, but just shut up, don't talk. Okay. And so then 2 or 3 more times we did that. And then finally the kids, it ended up being about 10 or 11 of these graduate students. They were all graduate students. There were no undergrads in that area. Graduate students and some postdoc students in things like cybernetics, information theory, journalism, chemistry, and these are all science kids. These are not psychology kids. In fact, in the whole team, there was only 2 psychologists, me and one other guy. And we had to defend psychology all the time from the scientists because they didn't like psychology either. But then after about the 4th meeting, the kids asked permission to join the conversation, right? And so some of them joined the conversation and started asking more questions and so forth. And John and Richard and I, at the middle of the 4th session with the kids and the 3 of us, John and Richard and I looked at each other, and Richard and I especially, and we went, "Oh, Jesus Christ. Do you understand what we're doing here?" And Richard and I look at each other and we just go, "Oh God." That was the moment of the birth of NLP right there. Oh. That exact moment. That's when NLP was born. Because from that time on, we understood that we were learning the actual structure, mental structures of the different therapy systems. And after about 6 months of doing that with therapy systems, we realized, wait a minute, that there's some things we understood. And we realized that it's not only therapy that you can measure everything. Anything that a human being does, they use their mind to do it. And so how the person thinks is what you're after. So how do they think about their problem? Okay, well, that's called psychotherapy. How do they think about mathematics? Well, that's called mathematic genius. How do they think about, and what's necessary to get them to that point? And that's when we built modeling. That's when we started studying people who were really, really good at stuff. But that wasn't until middle of the 2nd year. Before that, we were busy building Meta. I don't call NLP, I call NLP Meta, because there are 6 models, 6 skill sets that are the foundation skill sets of NLP. My experience is most people today in NLP don't know those very well. And some of them don't know them at all, okay? And my belief is that if you don't have the foundation, you can't go on and be great at anything. If it's tennis or a sport or chemistry, or if you don't study chemistry, you can't walk into a chemical lab and become a genius. You're going to blow the place up because you don't understand chemistry. Okay, you understand? Well, the same is true for basketball, tennis, whatever the hell you're doing. You have to have foundation skills in order to then move on to the next level of development. Okay. So my experience with most of the NLP people I know is they're tricksters playing games with applications that they don't really understand very well. And if the application goes well, then they do magic. If it doesn't go well, then they go, oh shit, I don't know what to do now. And and whatever, unless they have Meta, which was what we built in the first 4 years. So that I became, so we then formalized what we were doing and stopped teaching Gestalt and started basically examining systems. And that's when we got the opportunity to go around and study the greats: Virginia, Milton, Fritz, Carl Rogers, Eric Berne, all of the most famous people who built therapy systems in those days. And because our idea was, if you study the student of the student of the student, you're probably not going to get much. Okay. But if you study the person who actually created it, then you have the opportunity to get into their mind, if you know how, and find out how they actually think. Because once you discover how they actually think about what they're doing, then you've got something special. And so that's how we started. That's how we built it. And we went through 3 kind of phases before 1976. The first phase was we were all together all the time. Okay. And that was about 6 months. Okay. The second phase was John and Richard and I separated from the group, and John and Richard and I would meet and talk about different strategies, different things that they were learning and I was learning. I would take that back to the group. I was the leader of the group, and the group would then experiment with that and practice with that and try to make it work. And sometimes we would go to the group and say, I believe that if we do this and this and this, we can make this happen. Prove it. And so because nobody had ever done that. And when we were going to the group a lot and telling them that we believe if you mix this with this, you'll be able to do this. And that will allow you to go here, test it. Because we didn't know whether that would work or not, and it would never been done. So we were constantly trying to figure out how to do things that had never been done, or to do them better than the actual practitioner who built it. Like John would say to Richard and I after a year of watching us do Gestalt, and then he'd go back and watch Fritz, and he'd go, guys, you are so much better than Fritz Perls at doing Gestalt, so much better. You're quicker, you're more accurate, you do everything better, you understand. And so then we started, after about the first 6 months or so, we broke into those 2 different groups, John, Richard, and me, and then me and the team. Once a week, John and Richard would come to the team and talk about what we had built and learned and practice and see us do demonstrations and so forth. But according to the team, I was a member of the team, not a member with John and Richard. Okay, so that's one of the ways that it came out that I wasn't one of the creators, because the 12 people didn't know that I was working with John and Richard when they didn't know it for the first 2 years or so, first 3 years actually. So then the third, after about 2 years, then we made the third shift, which was John and Richard became kind of partners in the research and the reading, trying to find things that they thought could be really cool if we could figure out how to make them work by chunking them down. Okay, you understand chunking down, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We understand.
So we were chunking down everything, everybody, every discipline, every skill, everything we could find. We were all right and chunking it down just as hard as we could to try and figure out how it works. And then we started mixing things that had never been mixed. Okay, like we mixed parts therapy and hypnosis. Nobody had ever done that. Okay, and we would say, well, okay, well, supposedly you can't do that because Gestalt is a conscious structure and hypnosis is an unconscious structure, and people have always considered them different, separate, not compatible. So we went, so maybe they're wrong. So let's figure out how, if we can do parts therapy with a person in deep trance, right? Which had never been done by anybody. And so we did that and it worked fine.
Yeah.
And so we're going, well, oh, whoa, wait, that means then that you can mix this and mix this. And if you hadn't, because that opened another door to us that nobody had ever opened, and nobody. And we were excited. We were thrilled. Then we're talking to mathematicians about how they do complex mathematics. And we realize that they're using a similar structure to how a person thinks effectively about child rearing or raising their children, right? And we're going, whoa, wait a minute, I recognize that pattern. And then we talk to them, and we realize that some of these scientists would tell us, it's actually true. That's where I figured out how to do this, by talking to my son when he was about 4 years old, and I'm trying to figure out how to help him do something. And I realized, oh my God, I can do complex mathematics with that same process. And he goes, whoa. So he said, without realizing it, learning to be successful with my son gave me strategies to be successful with mathematics problems that I had not figured out how to do yet. And so we're going, whoa, wait a minute.